inside San Siro, a young girl with a model of the solar system.
This is where we're looking to the future.
The great scientist Margarita Hack once said, "The sun was formed about 5 billion years ago, and it will remain almost unchanged for another 5 billion years. In our solar system, the only planet truly suitable for life is Earth. It's the only planet where we can actually live. And so, I want to protect and care for it with all my might."
An astronaut. She's going to walk this little girl through the solar system.
I've got one that can see.
Alright, let's see if I can do a shorter video for a change. I used to do it all the time, like it was nothing. I just have to stay on topic and not go off on 50 tangents here. But I was watching this Olympics opening ceremony symbolism, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And Mike from the Candid Truth channel, he did a breakdown of all the different symbolism that I thought was pretty good. I'll put a link in the description. 2026 Olympic Satanic Ritual Exposed. So I know a lot of people have been talking about, you know, the pentagram. It's kind of in your face. And just the different stuff with the angel. You had this very Luciferian, I'm sure you could see it as a Nephilim kind of thing with the angel and the woman. Very interesting stuff. The part I wanted to talk about, because all that stuff I think is obviously worth noting. But here's the part that kind of fascinates me, is that smack in the middle of all this very blatant, satanic, very spiritual messaging and allegory, they have this little scene where the girl comes out and looks at the solar system, and then Samantha Cosfaretti, I think that's how you say her name, the NASA astronaut, the Italian astronaut, comes out and, you know, walks her over to the solar system, and they're all dancing around, and you have these ringed dancers, 8 of them, which is very interesting, okay? When you look at this orrery, and that's what this is called, I guess. It's a simplistic orrery, where you have all the planets on a little metal spindle thing, which is also reminiscent of what? What does this little stand remind us of? Where you have a central candle and 8 surrounding candles, almost like an angelic, representing sort of a planetary pantheon, or an angelic pantheon. It's very Kabbalistic. And yeah, this whole thing is very Kabbalistic. And just the symbolism of the stage itself was kind of amazing in terms of, it's essentially reminiscent of a cosmograph which is something I was looking into back in like 2016 when I was first thinking about the cosmology topic. And, you see this mirrored in all kinds of different spiritual traditions and basically different kinds of shamanistic depictions of the cosmos, where you have like the four equilateral. It's also, a lot of people have pointed out the obvious similarities to the swastika, which in itself is basically a cosmograph, which is just a pictorial or symbolic depiction of the cosmos, right? But from an enclosed biblical cosmology perspective, all the stuff starts to kind of take on even more significance when you understand, the four cardinal points and the center being really the center of the world, right? And it's interesting that then she takes this orb that the sun has the little mechanical framework, the structure that's around the sun, that is also the same mechanical structure that expands when they light the cauldrons. Did they always call it a cauldron? I don't remember them always calling them cauldrons when they would do the lighting ceremonies from the Olympics, but they light the cauldrons and the cauldrons expand and, then it makes the pentagram. So they're definitely trying very hard to connect the dots for you that, like, the thing that they're lighting is a solar symbolism. And of course, the whole thing, when you understand the history of the Olympic Games being dedicated to the god Apollo, the fact that you have, like, sun god imagery going on is not surprising at all. But I was just kind of struck by how, you can talk about satanic symbolism. I think now, especially because right now all the Epstein stuff is just like all Epstein everywhere all at once. It's just taken over the internet. It is like the biggest, it's Pizzagate all over again. And somehow, for those of us who were around for Pizzagate 1.0, remember that like any video that you put up about Pizzagate was getting taken down and censored and people lost their channels. And it's very interesting that all that stuff is coming out now, and YouTube doesn't seem to be censoring any of that, and people are just kind of diving into the filth, and it's rather diabolical, but it's kind of just another example of what we've seen for years and years, where the enemy has used, the quote-unquote truth movement has used conspiracy realities, like 9/11, like secret societies and all this stuff, to actually suck people into occult belief systems. And in this case, I think a lot of it is really to just kind of desensitize people and also blur the lines to what actually is pedophilia. Is a 15-year-old, is that really, pedophilia? There's a lot of people already, such as Nick Fuentes, is just coming out and saying it, like, that's not pedophilia. Which is disturbing, to say the least, but I think that is a big part of what the Epstein psyop is about. But overall, I was watching this and just remembering, like, how talking about biblical cosmology, and in reality, like, okay, when you think about all the sick, twisted, disturbing stuff that people are kind of grappling with and teasing out of these emails, which, again, how can we even verify that these, if we all know that, like, video can be faked, photos can be faked, the idea that emails can't be faked, and that these are coming straight from the government, but then it's like, oh, they're so incompetent, and they were forced by this bill that Trump himself signed. I think we have to be very skeptical, like, how much of this is a honey trap. But it's not that we already know that satanic ritual abuse is real. We already know that human trafficking is real. We already know that all of the sick, twisted stuff is real, and blackmail is a huge tool. So it's like, we don't need the Epstein files really to verify what we already know. And so it just struck me as how amazing it is that, like, we're at the point where people can now openly talk about all of that stuff, which of course was going on back in the Old Testament times, sacrificing their children to Baal and having orgies and, pagan revelry. There's nothing new under the sun. So we really, as Christians, we should not be shocked that this is still going on in the world. To understand that this is how Satan runs the kingdoms of this fallen world, is through horrific, unthinkable wickedness. We should understand that as Christians. That is the currency of the kingdom of darkness, right? But at the same time, we should also be reminded that the truth of God, our Creator and our Redeemer in Jesus Christ, is the most beautiful and hope-giving reality. And yeah, the flat earth conspiracy, because it is a conspiracy, right? To fake all this, Big Bang cosmology. And, they're getting ready to go back to the moon, and they've already delayed Artemis 2 missions, and, you can't compete with the Super Bowl. right? So it's basically they got to find the window whenever they're going to try and do that. But they're getting ready to send this crew back to just do an orbit around the moon, and we've already seen them send a capsule. How many years ago was that when they sent the first Artemis, and the moon was all distorted and it just looked super fake and gay. So now it'll be the same fake and gay shots. Then you'll see people sitting in their little capsule and staring at, does the Orion capsule use touchscreen? I wonder. I mean, the whole thing is so unbelievably stupid. But if anything, I just kind of wanted to challenge those of you who are still, like, if you can deal with all this other stuff, if you can deal with the baby sacrificing and the adrenochrome, if you can handle all that, Satanism, like legit high-level satanic intelligence agencies and all the rest, then there's no more excuses. Like, basically, I don't want to hear anybody scoffing at NASA being fake. And, like, why, at this point, if you can really understand that the governments are this compromised, then is it really that hard? Why is space travel the one thing that we just stop and go, no, this is where all the governments are still operating for the benefit of all mankind. The banking system is all an illusion. It's all usury. The medical field is all compromised. They're trying to kill you. The military-industrial complex, in every other context, nobody's trying to defend it. But when it comes to space, no, it's all legit and straight up. But yet, here you see it, like, this is what I'm trying to point out to you. Here you go, right in the midst of all your other satanic symbolism. There's your solar system. There's your the sun is 5 billion. It's evolution. Evolution is the foundational piece of brainwashing. It is the foundational piece of indoctrination to which all this other eugenics stuff is predicated upon. And I've been saying this for years, and I'm going to keep hammering away at it because there's, new people coming into this all the time. If we have the ability to deepfake, if we have this AI technology available to the masses to where they can literally make photorealistic video just using a prompt, then how many years do you think the government has had such technology available, not to the public? Whatever's available to the public, they had decades before. And of course, when you go back to the 50s and 60s, and even all the way up through the 80s, they weren't using digital imagery to fake space. It was still all using cameras and lenses and traditional special effects. Video, it's just Hollywood. It's Hollywood basement special effects. Using a combination of different methods, but it's just a TV show. Look at how much money and effort was spent into an opening ceremony for a sporting event. For what? It's amazing once you understand that, like, what this Olympic flame is really representative of, why they're lighting the cauldrons, why they have the runners running with the torch. And then every opening ceremony kind of has a similar thing where they're going through the history of the country, and they're going through the whole imagery of the torch being passed down through the generations, is the torch of the mystery schools, is the torch of the Luciferian, light bearer. It is their religion. It is their Babylonian occult religion that they have been preserving. That's the whole imagery. It's that, like, we've kept it burning, and now we're illuminating the world, and we're bringing all the peoples of the world together. That's what the 5 rings signify. It's one world religion. It's a one world system. The 5 rings symbolizing the 5 inhabited continents of the world. And yes, I guess technically they don't count Australia. I don't know how they come up with 5. But yeah, that's what those 5 rings are, is the one world mystery religion. You even have kind of some Lord of the Rings symbolism, the rings being a very ancient, symbol of occult power, and the Seal of Solomon kind of a thing. But, this is one of those things that's been going on our whole lives, these Olympic Games. And it's always been pointing to the same stuff. There you have it. The solar system. Occult symbolism right in your face. Indoctrinating the masses. And you can't reconcile this with the Bible. Once you read Genesis and read the scriptures with your eyes wide open, you realize that it's just not in there. The planets aren't even mentioned in Genesis, just sun, moon, and stars, and they're each their own unique thing. So if you read the Bible honestly, the sun is not a star, the stars are not suns, the moon is its own light, and you either believe the Bible or you don't.